All right, I hit start recording. Let's, as you say, hag max. Let's go.
Do you know what that
Do some
means?
hag maxing here. Speaking
All
of
right.
hags, my grandma's doing okay.
I'm
Oh, hell
assuming
yeah.
hag maxing is like next level mewing, where you're stretching and elongating your entire body to uncanny valley proportions. You're
I
not
think
even
Yeah,
trying to look good. You're trying to strike fear in the hearts of children, which I respect.
trying to
because I
stretch out
could
your
be,
facial muscles, make sure they start to sag by the time you're like,
I could be like wrong, but it's like I know like I. No, I'm pretty sure it is hag maxing. It's like a term that somebody brought up where it was just like, oh yeah, young
yeah,
guys that are into like women that are older than like 30 or older or something like that, and it's just like a thing of like that people started calling it hag maxing, which is a thing where it's just like, dude, that's not that old. That's you don't have to
I'm
you don't
about
have
to
to
be
call them
there. That
hags.
does hurt.
Yeah, it's like you don't have to call them hags. What the fuck?
Man,
I, I actually got it right. The one thing I did see for hag maxing is someone who's doing a bunch of eyebrow flexes to add their wrinkles to
Oh,
their
really?
forehead called hag maxing.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
that actually is amazing.
Hag maxing.
Yeah. All right, but yeah, hag maxing, where you go scare a bunch of children, get a bunch of firstborns, have at it, become a strange, mysterious person in the woods. Just the ideal American lifestyle right now. You know what it is? You're not bothering anyone. You're in your lane. You're moisturized.
You're not
So
moisturized.
no, you're not moisturized at
Hag
all.
maxing.
Actually,
I'm
by
festering.
moisturized,
Thriving.
your socks are always damp from walking around the swamp. That's the only moisture you get.
That
Thriving.
and the
Festering.
bubbling beads of brew as you stand over your cauldron and the smoke rises.
Making
Do you
you
know where that comes from? The old witch cauldron? Neither of you
No.
do? So there is something called I think it's a brew wife or an ale wife, maybe. It
Huh.
is women, like WEIF. And it was women who back in the day would make their own brew. So they would use large cauldrons to make beer. And they would stir that shit
Ah.
because you have to make sure it doesn't like get contaminated. And they created witches sort of off of that angle, along with a lot of other little witch notes,
Oh.
because they wanted to stamp out that they're like that's a man's job. I'm
Oh,
pretty
I see.
sure. So I'll double check that, but
They had to
it does
tackle to
come
make
from
sure that they like.
actual. Yeah, those big potions that they're brewing come from just beer.
okay? That's
That's awesome,
pretty
actually. I like
epic.
that.
Um, just just a woman
It's just
in her
Alewife, yeah.
lane making her own brew, and just like a 20-something a microbrewer comes in there, just being like, "You're making it all wrong. There's not enough hops in there."
Who's right?
ah! Hey, let's
It's
go.
the alewives background. Although the profession was later taken over by men, the
Bro,
original brewing profession back in ancient Mesopotamia was principally performed by women. And that's why you get the little like hag headdress with the little pointy kind of the hat and everything. Like half the
Oh,
look
really?
in the apron comes from that.
Really?
Yeah.
was that a
That's
Mesopotamia
fucking
thing, really?
awesome.
Yeah.
That's I always associate hags with like Eastern Europe and more kind
I
of.
was always, I was, yeah. Go. Sorry, I'm cutting you off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always think like
Popularized that.
Eastern Europe and like Nordic culture, but I'm assuming Baba Yaga is what really shaped that too.
Hmm.
Yeah. The Russian myth woman. She's freaking awesome.
Yeah, because I
Sure is.
mean, especially D&D
Yeah, it
hags,
is
but like
medieval Europe.
hags to this day really were shaped by Baba Yaga, of just that whole idea of just which woman has a big living chicken-legged hut in the woods. It's all fancy, so D&D Double Down's like, all right, all hags have some kind of weird moving vehicle that they just like to pitter around in.
I love that idea though. It's so
I
I
have
remember seeing that in Xanathars
yeah.
or in Volos. Volos was it?
Polos with
Uh-huh.
the mortar and pestle, which was the main one, and then there was like a skull, like an underturned skull that they would ride around in,
Mm-hmm.
and a little Mario Kart, and
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff. They started adding to it.
I want to have a hag with like a fucking duct taped pig on their broom.
That's awesome.
I know I had
Did
a lot
you
of.
guys?
Oh, go ahead.
No, I don't know why I know loose hag lore. Um,
It's your
but
job.
it partly, yeah. I study old women very, very closely.
You also live in the middle of the woods, so you have to learn the ways to fight them off.
You know what? Yeah, I live in a fucking retirement village. I should know about hags.
Exactly.
Um,
Both my
so
grandmas
Baba
are ones.
Yaga,
That's how I know about them.
if I'm remembering correctly, Baba Yaga in the myth was three sisters who all had identical walking chicken huts that this guy goes to like get information or get help from or a magic item or whatever. And they fucking drag him around where they're like, oh no, that's my sister. Go talk to Baba Yaga. And then he goes over there and they're like, oh no, that's my sister. You go talk to Baba Yaga. He's like, what?
No. You got to go talk to Baba Yaga.
I think-
That's like
Baba
Cross
Yaga.
street,
Bobo Yaga.
So you're saying
And-
Baba Yaga was the original gaslighter?
and then he went
Kind
off
of.
to Agrabah.
Agrabah, Baba Yaga and Agrabah. I love that movie. Was it
Yeah.
1967? But there, I think that's bullshit. Don't look that up. But
I don't know why I imagined the ending scene of. No, I'm thinking Dunkirk, where all the ships come and it's just like Baba Yaga and her 6 huts are rolling up on World War One.
awesome.
I kind of fucking. I've never really thrown in.
Yeah, I got
big
that right
stuff with
too.
Hags. Oh fuck yeah!
But that I think might be where hag covens come from, specifically in D&D. How there's 3 of them. So no, go speak to my sister thrice.
Yeah. I assume that, and just like I think there was some Greek influence there, whether it was intentional or not, or just like ideas of the fates or like the
Yes.
Norse equivalent of the fates. I can't remember their names, but there was 3 of them as well. And just in biblical sense, rule of 3 is a big thing. So I think it was just
Yeah.
kind of like that idea of the rule of 3 in general, just influenced by a lot of religions and creeds at that point, and they're like, yeah.
Mhm. The Moira in Greece and the Norns of the Norse.
That's what it was.
And they're all thread spinners, which just comes from like this is just shit that old ladies would do in their downtime. They're like, I'm gonna make some beer, I'm gonna make some clothes, fuck you, and then everyone's like, no, fuck you, and then they write a bunch of
old bitch!
fictional bullshit. Yeah, stop.
I mean, it just sounds like a story that would get shared around a campfire, where there's just like them 2 guys bored in town, where it's like, oh yeah, it's old lady Mildred again. And like, I don't know why she gives me an off vibe, and it's like, oh yeah, one time she actually fed her husband to a crocodile that she has just hidden in her backyard, right? He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, totally.
Well, I don't have the right evidence for this, but I'm inclined to believe you.
It's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw her turn into a cat, and you walk in, she's like, no, he just catches mice. They get in my beer. And you're like, no, you're a cat. Burn. It's like, why?
It sounds like what a witch would say, honestly.
Yeah.
I think you're full of shit, and I think you're a little cat. You're a silly little
Honestly,
kitty.
you know what? I've been defending them too much. I think that we should just take them to the pyre. I don't trust these women. I think, like, every time you approach them and make wild accusations, they get defensive, right? Isn't that insane? Like,
You know,
if
that
I
just says me like it's like that phrase from that Shakespeare thing that I didn't read. Me thinks doth protest too much.
I
So,
recall.
As Shakespeare once said, if she breathes.
I went
She's a
up to my
witch.
grandma and I remember seeing like the whole medical process of my grandfather passing away, and I disregarded all of that and I said, "Grandma, did you eat Grandpa?" And she was like, "What the fuck? No." That's defensive, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, you're right.
basic evidence. Evidence
had-
like core number 1. If they say no, burn them.
I had like
I-
a similar thing. I had like a grandma that I was suspecting
turn
that she was a
that.
witch. So I like walked up to her and I grabbed her by the shoulders and I started screaming in her face. Like I shook her like real
what did
hard.
she do?
And she shrieked back. And it's like,
Right.
dude, that's crazy. Like, dude, why are you acting like that?
Every time.
I had that as well, except my grandma, I was suspecting that her pills gave her power, so I replaced her Xanax with a frog, and next thing you know, she's turned green and ascended to a higher form. It's
They do
weird.
that every time without fail.
Yeah, I know, right? I just
I
keep
hate it when
finding
that
frogs in
happens.
the woods and replacing it with Xanax, and if I need more frogs, I can just take it to Crackhead Billy, and he'll give me more frogs for the Xanax.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember suspecting one of my other 7 grandmas of what was it? Some kind of witchcraft. So I found some fungus
Oh, yeah.
and I fed it to her because normal people would die from that.
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, if she's a witch, she'll die. And she didn't. She left her physical form and transcended to a new plane.
There we go.
That bitch.
Right?
Let Grandma experience ego death. It's good for her.
Stupid fucking bit.
Have you guys used hags in your games? Have you had a?
I'll go last for that, but yes.
Yes. I love hags. I use hags way more than I should.
Oh, you use them.
Okay, hold on.
All right, cut that out.
Can we leave that out?
Stop the recording. Talk to
Editor,
Logan.
fix that. Wait, I am the editor. Crap.
Fuck.
I don't edit these.
Look at him.
Yeah. So
I
I am the first and only born, so I have that right. Because I was sold to a hag for a head of lettuce, and next thing you know, my grandma's tormenting me, make me watch Shirley Temple with her all day to keep her company. So I got to get something out of this, okay? And I wish
No, that's valid. I'm sorry for persecuting you.
Yeah, no, it's my trauma, okay? Like every time I see Shirley Temple, I hear animal crackers in my soup.
Animals in my soup, monkeys and rabbits loop the loop.
Okay, yeah, we've got let's. Okay, we've been on this train for 11 minutes. Let's get it back on the rails slightly.
This is
Clip
peak
that whole
content.
thing.
How
Yeah.
does it make content?
Dude, cut this out.
No, like clip it, throw the whole thing on TikTok.
yeah, just tell him.
Yeah, I'm getting clips out of this at least.
Oh fuck.
But yeah, so
hags.
Yeah, your hags, Chuck. Go ahead.
now
Tell
the
us
pressures
again.
make me nervous.
Mario, do you want to go first? You present.
No,
I can
Mario.
go. I can.
You go
Yeah,
second.
Oh, I go. So.
Okay, I'm actually going to do it now. Okay, so hags, I love them. They're neat. Okay, now you can go, Mario. Okay, so
Cool. You've used a hag in your game. Yes. Okay, we have a confirmation there.
okay, so I did a really big thing.
Go ahead. No, sorry. I'm fucking. Go.
We don't know where the jibit ends and the series of discussion begins. What have we done? So, hags, yeah, they were actually a pretty integral part of the last campaign I ran where,
Ooh.
so I just like that whole idea of nature magic, but I kind of had that thought of like, what, can I take it a step further? Can I make my hags be something more than just weird old ladies in woods? What if they're weird old ladies in the woods, but they, instead of just having nature magic, they try to embody nature? Mm-hmm. So I had 3 in particular. There was old Auntie Mindy Moss. There was just straight up Wendy and Amelia the Animal. And they kind of took through that where obviously Moss, she was just trying to actually like just become one with nature in the sense of plant-based. Her big actual like thing she flew around on, her old mortar and pestle, if you will, was actually an old hollowed out ancient ent. That's what she used like as her little vehicle. So yeah, it was like an old ancient tree that she corrupted, entized, and used as a thing. Yay. There was a cursed sword in there that one of my party members ended up taking out of it later. Then there was Wendy, who tried to embody weather. And what... I don't know why that was so hard. She tried to embody weather itself, so she used a lot of nature-based, weather-based magic, like particularly lightning, like wind magic, stuff like that. She was a lot of fun to build. And
what's that big one? Just control weather, I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, she kind of had a passive effect where like where she would go, storms are happening, and she actually rides around on a thundercloud 100% like Big Mom. I took so much inspiration.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
I hate Big Mom as a villain. I can't stand her, but she looks so cool riding in on that cloud.
Yeah.
Like, I will never once deny that.
I want to see Big Mom and Goku in a race.
Well, God, I don't know why my mind went to who's the better parent out of them two.
Well,
I want to answer that question, but that'll take us way too far away.
Oh, that will. The final one, Amelia, her whole thing was like
the animal.
Yeah, just being like actual animals in nature and just like humans in general.
Oh, just a skinwalker grandma kind of thing.
Yeah, that's basically it. Her, I had the most fun describing just because her actual how she looked was the most like kind of twisted looking hag. Just because I had it like her face was like just very angular and beak shaped, except she had teeth, but it was all
Hmm.
flesh colored,
Huh.
so it just looked like she had a long protruding jaw that like just
Like
functioned
the
as
Cart
a beak.
Titan or the Tank Titan
A little
in
bit,
Attack
yeah,
on
yeah,
Titan. But yeah.
yeah, old peak.
Hmm.
So that and that's what I had them as, and that was a ton of fun. Like they were kind of middle of the campaign bosses for my party.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That's
they
cool.
still my party considers like that some of the best they had because they had a journey of like they were getting they kept running into the animal throughout the campaign. She was just sending various creatures and undead at them the entire time. Then finally they accidentally get trapped in the Underdark by Wendy. So not Underdark, Feywild by Wendy. Underdark's the current campaign I'm running.
Hmm.
Oh
So
hell
they
yeah.
have to fight their way out of the Feywild and defeat the hags while they're there. Then that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's cool. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I did
I
some
kind of
freaky
have.
things with Amelia because it turned out she was kind of the mastermind behind the whole thing in general. Her main plan was when one of the sisters actually got taken out, she grafted them onto her body full on Godric style.
Oh shit.
Oh,
And so that was her idea is she no longer had to content with the coven. She would be a coven in herself.
I really like that.
Yeah, just be a three-headed hag. Because
I don't like visualizing that, but I love the
it,
concept.
I really liked how it did it because it was very unconventional. Of just like after they defeated Wendy, she appeared out of nowhere, just kind of a Mortal Kombat ripped her spine out, wrapped it around her arm, and just kind of welded it to her, and just like
Hmm.
fused her head into her hand. So she just basically had a Mega Man lightning cannon for her arm now.
That was her sister. That's fucking cool. That makes me think of the fates in the not Heracles, but the fictional character Hercules.
Oh yeah.
The Disney movie where they like passed around the eyeball and one of them had it in their
Yeah.
hand. To
Yeah.
have just like a head on the end of your arm as something that I don't think I see enough.
Yeah, yeah, and I thought that was really cool. So her end goal was after the party killed the other sister, she was going to sweep in and grab it, but the
Don't let her
party
do
uh,
that.
straight up. I can't
Yeah.
remember how, but they had a way to disintegrate her body, and they did it, so she couldn't do it. So her plan got ruined, and that just sent her into even more rage.
Gotta love them hags.
Yeah,
Fuck yeah.
that was fun.
All right, May
Yeah.
Ronays. What about your hags?
Fucking. It's kind of funny because I had kind of like I haven't really used hags in games. Like I like or at least more in the sense of I don't feel like I've fully utilized hags that well in games. Like there's been times where I've thrown stuff in, but like most recently something that I've used with hags was just like more of a small encounter of like a party was dealing with Fey related shit and I was just like would be kind of cool to use and I ended up throwing like a coven of sea hags and I was just like I'll maybe have them like it was like an encounter thing. The players dealt with them pretty easily and it was just like a thing where it's like shit, I should have planned this better.
They're like the least interesting, lowest challenge hag. There's not
Yeah.
enough about them.
Yeah,
But it's like I've used a thing that was more like aligned with that, but they weren't necessarily hags. I had like a thing of like, oh, I had like a coven of witches basically, and it was more like homebrewed
Same
stuff of
thing.
like, yeah, same kind of shit, same kind of concept. The only difference is just that they were hot. But fucking it was like a thing
Like
of
nose piercings and shit.
yeah,
A black
it was.
under eyeliner.
you can find
I
it in
had
a hot
a.
Just
topic.
keep going.
I had like three of them that were these it was a this idea of there was like a shadow witch, there was a flesh witch, and there was like this weather witch. And which
Wait
is
a minute.
funny because it's like
Yeah.
what you were saying. I was like, oh shit, this is pretty similar. But like the concept was just they work together in the sense of the Weather Witch basically was able to manipulate the sky, where it's like there was constantly this like overcast of clouds, and this played into the Shadowy Witch was like this lady that was like she was a vampire that just knew how to manipulate like shadow magic related kind of things. And the idea was one of them can manipulate flesh. So what they would do is when they would kill people, they would basically or like if they had like corpses or something, they could manipulate the bodies into looking like other things.
Oh.
The shadow woman, kind of like fucking what's his face from One Piece, Gecko Moria. She
Hey.
could like basically pull shadows from people
Peter
and
Pan
put
that
them
shit.
in. Yeah, they would basically like shove it into these corpses, and so there was this thing where like they were basically creating things like Vanderhobbs, and
Oh,
I
cool.
sent those towards the party, and that was like a fun thing of like there's a point where they can see inside of the mouth of the Vanderhob where it's like doing all like because when it puts somebody in there, they start taking necrotic damage, and when they look inside, they see that there are these like shadowy hands that are puppeting the tongue and stuff. It's like this
Oh.
thing of like when people get put inside of the mouth, it's like a bunch of shadowy hands grab at them and like pull them in.
Like the Ghost Alley in JoJo Part 4.
Yes, literally like that.
Yeah,
It was, and
love
it was
those
like
visuals.
fucking,
Oh.
it was super, it was super fun. But there was like, and then they did like more like I kept playing with that where it's like once they were more aware of the party and like the shit that they could do, the Flesh Witch started specifically making things to like
Oh no.
deal with them. So it's like there was a fucked up
vivid
thing of
with
like
those.
an NPC that the party knew got like
Oh.
turned into a
Mhm.
staff. So it was like a fucking thing where it's
Oh.
just like it was like
Oh.
they like allied themselves with some noble that the party had to deal with, and like the noble woman like basically had this staff that let her have like a couple of spells, and it was just like when they pull out the staff, it's like this disgusting like just twisted
Hairy,
flesh rod,
fleshy.
and you could see like the eye of the guy like sticking out looking around, and you could see like patches of his hair like just going down it, and it was like all nasty. Fucking there was other shit of like the party came across like this group of people running away with this ogre, and it turned out that like the ogre got twisted into being a mount, so they were like horse shaped basically, but you have like this gross thing of like they still have like their hands and stuff, they could kind of barely grunt and talk. And it was just like a thing of
Having fun with that body horror.
oh yeah, no, I
Yeah,
love
really,
body
I'm-
horror, especially
yeah.
since I do a ton of the art for my game. So it's like a thing of like, what kind of nasty shit can I draw this session? And I loved it. Even one of the fun things was I had a with
My
the
party
Flesh
calls
Witch.
me evil. God dang.
One of the fun things I had with the Flesh Witch was she had this specific hat, and the hat acted like a bag of holding, but the hat was like a bunch of stitched together faces, and like it had like a mouth at the top. So there's like a point where it's like something that it would do sometimes is it would have potions that are stored inside, and like something is like a legendary action that I would use for the Flesh Witch was it would like spit out like certain potions. Sometimes it would spit out a
Oh.
vial, and then suddenly like an ooze would like spill out from it or some shit.
Oh, okay.
Like the
But,
butthole hat in What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah, literally like.
Yeah.
And so that was that with her, and then like the Weather Witch was I had like a concept with it, and it was kind of fun because eventually when they got like into a big clash with them, it was around Halloween. It got like timed pretty well, and like my main idea, because I remember planning them out around December of the year prior. And then, like, eventually, when it got towards October, they finally started dealing with them. But it was like this idea of like, oh, I have a vampire, a werewolf witch, which was the weather one, and I had this Frankenstein, which was the flesh witch, and it was just it was like a little what do you call it? Like I guess like gothic horror kind of idea with them. But yeah, they were fun. I liked them. I got more fun out of the Flesh Witch just because I got to throw her at the party a bunch of times because I played into the idea of she basically made flesh copies of herself, and she would sometimes store them in the fucking like the bag of holding hat. So it was like if there was like one combat where it's like every copy on death would explode, and there was like a point where it's
Ooh.
like when she was about to die, immediately like spitting out from the hat, another body like jumped out of her, and she just grabbed the hat before it blew up, and she started like, it was like, oh, second phase,
cool.
she's back in full health.
That's terrible.
That is awful,
Fucking
but I
terrible.
love it. Good on you, Mario.
But
Yeah, you need
yeah,
to.
no, that was.
You really need to watch Jujutsu Kaisen because you love Mahito because he pulls some stuff like that.
It's always funny where it's like
Mojito.
having
Mojito.
those fucking things of like I had somebody do the same thing or tell me like a similar thing like around that time where I was working on these and I started like doing stuff with the campaign and they were like, I know what you stole that from, and I was like, damn, they know I stole everything from One Piece, and they're like, it's from this anime, and I was like, huh? No.
Just taking all that shit. That's funny.
Yep.
You One Piece bastards. Well, mine's different. What were you gonna say, Chuck?
Oh.
I'm getting that all the time, except it's the opposite because I've told you all that I am about as met as a Harry Potter fan as I could possibly be. And I'm running a Strixhaven-esque game right now. It just takes place, in a sense, it takes place in the Magic Academy. Other than that, that's as deep as it goes. And I do have a character based on Lupin because I think he was a cool character.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, I liked him a lot.
Yeah,
I like
Like,
Lupin and Charlie Weasley of all people, because those are two people in Harry Potter I did randomly
The
think were
iconic
really
duo.
cool.
didn't get enough screen
Charlie
time.
Weasley's got to research his dragons. I'm like, that's cool. That's what I'd be in the wizard world.
Right? Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
But and that is as deep as the Harry Potter references go. But all the time when I'm introducing to professors, I have one of my two of them are big Potter fans. I'm like, I know what you're doing there. I know what you're doing.
Big
I'm like,
potheads.
Big pothead.
and it's like, I'm not doing nothing. I just made this guy. What do you mean? It's like, oh yeah, it's like this guy from Harry Potter. I'm like,
Oh.
okay.
I hate experiencing that, but as a player and someone who sucks at conversations, it's so much fun to catch shit like that where you're like, oh,
easy,
that's
yeah.
where that came from.
I do the same shit.
I've done it like 4 times this conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you, Logan.
God damn it.
I'm gonna kill you.
I'm not going to say that.
Meet you at Gen Con, bitch. My hag is fun and super weird because she's tied to our idiot barbarians lore,
Ooh.
where he is a taxidermist and he had a horrible event. I forget the specifics because it happened a long time ago, where he had 2 dogs and both of them died, and he just refused to accept it. So he went to a hag. I called her Baba Bubbles, just old lady Bubbles, and she has like a whole shop that she can set up, and it just starts spewing out bubbles like a candy shop. And so he went to her and he was like, look, I need my dogs back. And she said something to the effect of like, you can only have one. And then she turned, or like, one will suffer, one won't. And he was like, anything, because he's a fucking idiot. So one of them turned into a Renine, which is a ghost from Stibbles, and it's like a ghost dog that loves you.
Okay.
And the other one turned into a Silhouette, which is a vengeful spirit that tracks you like It Follows.
Aw.
And
Hell yeah.
so he has like been missing one for a long time, and then during a journey he came to the tree where they both died, and that thing shut him the fuck down. Like he could not do any actions in combat. He was just mourning. And then in that city, Baba Bubbles is like, hey, I'm here. And my favorite way of visually describing her, because I like sort of the psyche angle of adventures more than the physical, like, terrifying flesh monsters. So
Yeah,
she has this illusion cast up where there's this huge cauldron, and she's a little lady on a little, like, rickety staircase that goes all the way up, and she's throwing spices and shit in it with using floating magic. And he's talking to her, and she's like, look, you know this is your fault, right? And he's like, nah. And she's like, look, this is your fault. And he's like, nah. And she's like, can you take blame? And he's like, nah. So it was like infuriating to genuinely be talking to the player, and he's just like, And she drops the illusion, and instead of being this like little gnome hag, she is a like 18-foot Dark Souls hag who is that whole cauldron, and she's not levitating stuff. She's like reaching over and picking it up and hiding herself. And she's like, you need to fucking like take responsibility for this. And then I had his dogs merge into like a little Cerberus, where it's the two
shit.
dogs, and one is a ghost and one is a silhouette. So it's this weird fucking thing that can do like a whimper, and
That's sick.
yeah. So I actually might ask your guys' help moving forward because it was at the end of a long combat session. I was tired. I had a couple drinks, so I was like just making shit up, and it was fun, and I want to continue it. But there was the worst possible thing where one of the party members basically opens a gateway to the final boss because they were sneaking in. And so it's a city building island thing, and at the middle there's a little portal that can go anywhere, and they went to the Shadowfell.
Campaign?
Yeah.
Okay.
They went to the Shadowfell, and they're like, we will come back for you if that ever opens again. And she's like, well, I was an ally of them the whole time, as she swapped out characters. So this portal opens, and I was like, okay, guys, drop everything we were planning for the next session. It's going to be different. And in order to open a portal to the Shadowfell, which is the negative plane of existence, like, you have to place something in the little door to open it, and it kills you. Instantaneously, you die. You need a sacrifice, and you need a translation into death in order to bring other people there. So this one player who had this character for like the past few sessions while their original character was off doing side quest stuff, just be like, tee, and turn into a ghost. Like, they got eviscerated and zombies started pouring out, and this general that they locked in there was like, motherfucker, I wasn't ready, but we're bringing everyone. So they needed to shut the door in like 3 minutes, or zombies would just continuously come out of this bottleneck. And the player who turned into a ghost was like floating around fucking with the rest of the party. And there was this other ghost who was there with the previous time. He accidentally died. He didn't know that's how it worked. And so he like went head to head. Oh,
that's how that guy exploded. You mentioned that in the...
Yeah, he went head to head with the ghost, and I realized, looking at the stat block, they can't do anything to each other. Ghosts cannot affect each other at all. So he like grappled her, and then she left. And she possessed... oh, fuck, I forgot another note. So the guy who has a divided dog took a devil contract in that same city because he's a fucking idiot. 3 of my players did out of 5. I don't.
God.
One of them lost the name of the devil they made the contract to in a book, like the true name. She sacrificed his true name, and it's like, But he wished for the best axe in the world, and he gets this axe. And the curse is he wakes up as a tiefling. That's how these contracts work in this world. The only way a tiefling is created is through a devil contract. It forces you into that. It taints your blood and your existence. You're not born from it. So he wakes up as a tiefling that is half black and half white, like Onyx black and like Stark white. And so our fucking ghost player is floating around, the barbarian's raging with his little divided pup, and this magic insane axe that looks like nothing. It looks like 3D printed, but it's fucking crazy. And he's swinging, he's beating up the big bad. And that player, none of this happened because I wanted it to or planned it. That player possessed him. And I was like, okay, you have like one more turn before bad shit happens. And they're like, okay, I turned to his dog. And cleaves the undead dog in half.
No!
And I was like... So as the dog gets cut in half, I'm like, well, both of you basically die. And this dude whose existence is tied to a devil contract pertaining to that dog, and his life is affected by a witch deal pertaining to that dog, he like dies and wakes up as a silhouette man, where he is a literal verbatim shadow of his former self, who used to be divided, and now he's like nothing. I don't know what to do in the next session, but... I rolled a while ago, and the hag is supposed to show up and visit the island, so she'll be there to say something about what the fuck just happened to him.
Yeah, we could talk about that after this. Oh my god.
Yeah, but yeah, so hags and devil deals, it's fun when they overlap, and I really like the idea of hags who kind of have a moral lesson that your players are ignoring and suffering, like a genie almost.
Yeah.
I feel they're good for that, and there's a lot you can do with that, since the basis for hags really is them old fairy tales and wise tales that were basically as a forewarning of just not to be greedy, eat your vegetables, don't go out after dark, don't date Susan, Dad.
Right.
Don't cheat on your wife. shrinks your balls.
You'll be infertile because I'll come to your house every night and I'll tickle your balls and you won't know what happened when you wake up.
Yeah,
Your balls are
classic
tickled, and now you
wise
can't have
tales.
kids.
Don't, do not
Kill us all this time.
Every time you approach your wife, you'll think of me.
don't forget
like
to tip
that.
your waiter, or the hag will come and rip off your scrotum.
One guy's just like, yeah, that's not a curse. He's like, eyes up the hag. He's like, yeah, I'll take it.
Oh yeah, now this will spice up the bedroom.
Solution to every one of my problems.
I'm just imagining that one guy from American Dragon, Jake Long, just like the girl turns into a monster, and he's like, jackpot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
She like splits the mouth open, the xenomorph mouth comes out, and he's like,
Yeah.
jackpot. Based.
That dude's so based.
Truly based. That's something I've always wondered, because I mean that's possible that hags are supposed to be so disgusting and twisted, but just like in the world we live in now, some people would probably still be like, yeah.
A lot of people are very much wood.
We're getting
kind
more
of
and more
funny.
depraved. And
It's
I'm
kind of
fine with
funny
it.
where it's like it makes me think of like the sea hag, and I remember like looking at the thing of like, oh, the sea hag is supposed to be like the ugliest hag that like is out of all of them, and I like remember looking at the art and thinking about that, and I was like, you know, that the fact that their face is so like more like monstrous and removed, it kind of works a little. It's like, you know, the lower part's just the ladies. So if you,
You're right.
We monster boys do not judge.
We do not. We are the monster boys. We would. Hashtag
we would. That's
we would. That's not a good one.
That's going to be our first bit of merch. Is just like we would.
hashtag we would.
Good. Would what?
Anything
Would
that
what?
ain't
Would
good,
feel like-
we would.
Weather boy.
I like the I do like the fairy tale aspect of hags, of like I love the concept of their magic being kind of their kind of stuff is going to be out of bounds of like typically what a player would be able to just do. Like I like the idea of them having this like crazy ass shit. Like even that was the main thing, like thinking of the witches that I used, where it's just like their stuff has to be like a specific concept, and I have to play with that and just be like, okay, the limit is that they're tied to this specific thing.
That's fair.
Besides that, like maybe they'll have like some specific spells, but those are the rules onto themselves. Like it's like even like with the Flesh Witch, it's just like, oh, maybe before they got into all this shit, because a lot of them, the concept is just like, oh, they're spellcasters of some sort. Like the werewolf lady was a druid, and the other two were like wizards, and it's just like the idea of like, yeah, maybe the Flesh Witch lady, she was very into evocation stuff, so it's like she has like fireball and things like that. But it's like besides that, it's just like then the real shit is like her doing like flesh manipulation shit.
Yeah.
And that's like, you know, playing with that idea of like all the crazy shit. So I like that concept of just fucking like having the contract and her pulling out some wild shit of like a fucking the dog and stuff like that. That's fucking fun.
Just affecting the personal lives. And also, I really like the idea. The main thing and my favorite thing about hags is that their magic is the only magic that doesn't have to make sense.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah.
have to have ties
Yeah.
to any school. It just take the effect of something like a weapon and take something completely unrelated like a frog or an amphibian. Like if you immediately just coming off of that association, say she gives you a toad and she's like, squeeze it, and you squeeze it and its tongue sticks out and it's a sword. That makes no sense, but that's fucking cool. And
That's
I
cool,
would use
yeah.
it. Yeah.
It's awesome as fuck.
Yeah, no, I remember that because my players went to a hag shop recently and thought, oh, we'll find some cool stuff in there. And it's like, hey, you got any cool weapons? And he's like, ooh, I got a really good one for you here, my boy. So we have here, and he pulls out this little capuchin monkey.
You throw this at them, and it grabs onto their face and it screams.
That would be terrifying. Is just like literally just throws a chimp at you.
Just does fucking like
Yeah,
thunderclap or some shit.
Yeah, but this one, and he's like, just sits it there in front of him, and they're just like, well, how does it work? And she's like, what you do here is you tickle him, and then he just like starts like laughing maniacally, and just like all this dust starts spraying over him. That's just like itching powder.
Oh my god.
The monkey of itching.
And they're just like, you got like a weapon or something? I'm like, oh, a weapon! And then she pulled out, and she just pulled out a shrunken head, and it's like, what does that do? It's like, you see here, you reach in there, you poke out its eyeballs, and you throw it, and it'll explode like a little bomb.
It's like a fucking grenade. That's awesome.
Yeah, and they're just like just baffled by it. It's like, I think we're good, and it's like, are you sure? I also got, and they're just already walking out the door.
That's good.
Yeah, none of it was displayed either. It's just like she had everything like just piled up like a hoarder's house, and she's just ripping things out of random boxes and just like showing them what it does.
I think the real fun thing with hags too, in that same sense, is like how useful they are as like they should be a big deal. Like they should be like set up to be like prominent in some way, because it's like if or like to use them to their max capability, because it's just like there's so much there to play with of just fucking you know, when you have the weird magic kind of angle, it's just like, oh dude, you could do literally whatever with that.
Oh, yeah.
It's fucking
Also, if you have a coven, you got to think more than likely they're going to be very influential. Like they probably have a good reach amongst them. I think one of the best examples I've seen of a coven was Witcher 3. The pull that those hags had over like that whole kind of middle continent area. Like, have y'all played Witcher 3?
Yes. Run me through what you were talking about.
I was saying, like, I think one of the best examples of a coven of hag and the influence they could have is like that. Is that hag?
The
coven.
beekeepers, I think, or like the hags. One of them had that basket on their face.
One of them had the basket, and I had like the insects flying around her at all. One had the flies falling around her at all times. I think she had like the one eye. I can't remember what it's called, but anyways,
really clever, like diversity in each of them. I love that, and because it ties to the three. I don't know why Baba Yaga is also one of the three, but the three fates is super interesting. I'm not sure if it is just the Greco-Roman lore where one is old, one is like a middle-aged mother, and the other is like a young sort of bridal figure, sort of past, present, and future. And I love that trichotomy that you get to kind of play with, where they each represent drastically different things, but are the same entity.
Yeah, because you can do three of the same hags, but that kind of gets a little boring. Like, for a quick fight, that's fine, but I feel like you should go different hags to really flesh out a group together, even if you do like a Burr hag, a Dream hag, and an Annis hag. Just like three like drastically different ones that are working only together just for power.
I don't think I've ever seen that before, where it is just like a jumble of different hags. Because in the core mechanics, it's like, oh yeah, a coven is three of these, and they have these affiliated powers. But to have that mix,
nah, screw that. I always do three different hags. Like even just that different flavoring you can do, and I feel like that works better because to me, like a coven of hags should be influential. Like whether it is just like in this old rural like area where like they have to rely on these magic ladies to protect the area, guide them, do all this other stuff, or make sacrifices to them, or their crops will wither, they won't give birth, all that fun stuff. But but I feel like each one should kind of have their own little region that they do, and that's usually what I try and base my covens on. Like a sea hag could be like a little swamp hag. Dream hag could be dealing with like kind of supernatural stuff. Annis hags obviously just has a bunch of troll and ogres just pretty much patrolling the area, watching over them.
Yeah, and you could also kind of play it at the angle where they're like a small kingdom in the sense that each of them, there's like a CEO, a CFO, and then a CMO,
Yeah.
where each of them has majorly different jobs and they do different things. Where one goes into the nearby village and gauges the people, and then the other bolsters the problems in the forest, and then another is kind of like the mastermind or the potion brewer or something.
They
That's
need
super
each
fun to
other to
play with.
work.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they're a singular, well-oiled machine.
Yeah, that's kind of what I did. Where the nature one, she was like the one that actually interacted with people and dealt with people, and the animal, she was kind of like their enforcer. Where if they ever had a problem, they're like, "Yeah, go take care of this," and that's why she got really spiteful and resentful to the other two.
I like
And
that.
um,
Horrivores, thank you.
and Wendy, like she was kind of like praised as a local kind of nature deity to some of the local areas since they go to her and pray for rain, or just make trades for
Oh, yeah.
rain and stuff like that.
Is that also One Piece inspired?
No.
No.
No. That actually wasn't, but I get what you're going for.
You!
Stop!
Don't say that.
Yeah, no. I actually need to tell like my favorite story about them. I said they got trapped in the Feywild. That's not actually true. That was completely unintentional. Because what happened is they got in a fight with Wendy at her. They found her base and she was there. So it's really cool. I mentioned her in the flesh golem video where she was the one where her minions were flesh golems that she was just pumping full of lightning and just sending out there. And they found an old abandoned mill that she was using to make some flesh golems, and she built it around a Fey crossing. And since she was up on her cloud, like throwing lightning down on everyone, so the two frontliners, it was an Ozimar and a Lycan blood hunter. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he has the brilliant barbarian idea of just throw me at her. And the paladin Ozimar was strong enough to do it, so she picked him up and just threw him on there. His plan was to land on her cloud with her and try and wrestle her off. And the end result was they ended up just clashing in midair, and she ended up beelining and crashing into the top of the mill. Because he couldn't get her off. I was like, okay, I'm going to bring this down with me. And I'm like, and that's where the Fey crossing was. So I'm just like,
oh, that's
what's
cool.
going to happen if he goes into the Fey crossing? And then I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to be mean and make him into it. I'm going to make it a percentile chance. So I did like the rough math in my head of like how big the Fey crossing was and how big the room was and where they crashed into it. Because it was built, the Fey crossing was straight into the wall of this second story building. And he came in at this angle. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to say 20% chance he goes into the Fey crossing. I rolled a goddamn 81. So it's like, so I was kind of going like, I rolled a D100.
Yeah.
Like, if I get 80 and above, that's how I'm going to do this.
And
And sometimes I'll do that. I'll just set a percentage and I'll roll for it.
That's always fun.
Yeah, and I was like, oh. Oops. So I described it from the paladin's point of view as she flew up to the roof and looked at the big hole in the roof. She only sees the hag in there and not the Lycan, and everyone's like, what? And she just laughs and just and disappears. She transfers to the Feywild, like, okay, I'll get this guy while he's alone. And all of the parties just in the second floor of this building staring at this walkway into the forest on the second floor, just like, what did you do? And the Paladin's like, I didn't do anything.
It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
That's good shit.
That led to a fun adventure where he was trapped in the Feywild by himself for 6 days while the rest of the party just went through the portal a few seconds after him. So the time discrepancy.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
that's
awesome.
Ask.
Yeah.
So the time discrepancy, he was stuck in the
Jumanji
Feywild for a few days, roughing it out. But yeah, fun little journey. But
heck yeah.
we're getting toward the wrapping point. So my boys, what is our rating this week for Hags?
Give them sweet-ass old ladies a 5 out of 5.
Oh.
Yeah, Hags
They're the top for me.
I would give them... Yeah, I'd give them a 5 because they're really useful in like a lot of ways. You could...
They're good for teaching
fun.
lessons and for introducing just ideas that normally you can't introduce, which is
Something you can
almost
also
all I need.
They're
Go
also fun, like even for like low level kind of stuff, even in the sense of like you can use them not necessarily as like just straight up fights, but it's like a thing of I mean technically you could, but it's like a thing of just like even at low levels, it's just like they can be a fun thing of like pulling people into like a narrative. They can be like a big boss that's maybe like connected to other things.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, they also kind of work as like the villain who doesn't reveal themselves until you're ready to fight them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where you can have a character who's involved or starts you on your quest, and then your players are level 1 or level 3, and once they get to level 5 or 8, then you're like, that was a hag. That was a hag the whole time.
Yeah.
Kill
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Also to me, especially when you're dealing with a coven, because that's how I slowly kind of introduced that coven, was they were only dealing with Amelia, the animal, at first. So they had a few fights with her just like by herself, but then once she gets with the coven, it's like, oh, these people are an actual threat now. She didn't even have access to her full magic, and we had trouble fighting her.
So what do you give them?
Yeah, I was honestly going to say 5 out of 5 as well.
Perfect score for hags. I think that's
Perfect
our first.
score.
I think that's our
actually.
first universal. Like we'd
Really
always
give
be kind of
goblins.
close, but yeah.
Thank you, old ladies. What'd you say? Oh, we gave goblins upper fours.
Yeah, I was the
Four,
one that
yeah.
went 3 for goblins, so I know I was the one that was off on that.
Yeah, first 5 out of 5.
Good
Write
stuff.
that down.
We love old ladies here at Monster Boys.
And we
Gotta
love
put 5 stars
those-
in the thumbnail.
we love that one little goblin in a dark room who watches this. He's either like driving a UPS and then he goes home to like write up a wiki thing, but there will be eventually a little graph or a tier list where someone like jotted down all of our scores.
That would be
Yes,
good.
I love hags, and I love.
And I want to let that
Charlie! I love hags!
special little creature know that you mean more to us than ourselves.
Generally, like I got my boys on a tier list here. You're above them on a tier list. I'm sorry. Like,
Oh, that's fair actually.
yeah,
You are the tier list, so
you are our
Make
tier
this
list.
for you.
for you.
This you, our fans.
You
For
missed.
you. We love
Where
you.
the fuck were you pointing, Chuck? You're like, for you.
I forget where my webcam is sometimes. Okay, I'm going to leave before I get more embarrassed. Bye.